The first thing you need to know is that she was wearing his hoodie. Not on purpose. She didn't even know whose it was when she pulled it from the back of her closet that morning. It was gray, slightly oversized, with a small embroidered logo near the collar. A cafe in Hongdae she had apparently been to so many times she had a loyalty card. She didn't remember any of it. But she put the hoodie on anyway, because it was comfortable, and because the morning was cold, and because she was only going to the convenience store 2 blocks down from her apartment. The one her best friend Saba had set up for her before she arrived back in Seoul, stocking it with injera flour and gochujang and a note on the refrigerator that said, "Don't do anything dramatic until I land. Flight's Thursday." Lulit Bikel had been back in Seoul for exactly 4 days. She didn't remember the first time she'd lived here. She only knew that she had because her furniture was here, her work contract was here, her coffee mug had a chip in it that suggested a person with a habit, and on her bookshelf, between a dog-eared copy of Americana and a Korean language workbook filled with handwriting that was unmistakably hers, there was a photograph. Just one. She and a man, laughing, her head thrown back, his hand mid-gesture as if he just said something that surprised even him. The city lit up behind them. She had studied that photograph for 3 days. She knew his face the way you know a song you can't place, familiar in a way that bypasses logic and goes straight to the chest. His name, she found out from her coworker Meron, was Jihoon Park. And according to everyone who knew them both, they had broken up 8 months ago. What Lulit couldn't know, because no one had told her yet, was why. What she also didn't know, standing outside the convenience store in his gray hoodie, holding a pack of banana milk she had apparently loved for years, was that Jihoon Park was standing 20 feet away from her. He had seen her first. He had not yet decided what to do about it. Pause, the question lands. What does a man do when the woman he never stopped loving appears on the street wearing his clothes and doesn't remember him at all? If you're new here, you found something different. Subscribe. We tell stories that stay with you. Let's go back 8 days. To the moment Lulit Bikel walked out of Severance Hospital in Sinchon with a paper bag of medication, a phone full of contacts she couldn't place, and a mother on the other end of a video call who was crying so hard she had to hand the phone to Lulit's father Teshom, who was crying more softly but pretending he wasn't. "You look thin," her mother Mecht said when she could speak again. "I look exactly the same," Lulit said. "You look thin and you have no memory," Mecht said. "Those 2 things together mean you look thin." Her younger brother Desta, appearing from behind their parents' shoulders like a news alert nobody asked for, said, "She literally looks the same, Mommy. She's fine." "She's not fine, she's in Seoul." "Seoul is fine. Seoul is where she got hurt." "Mommy, she got hurt in a car accident. That could happen anywhere. In Addis she would have been home by now." Lulit watched her family argue about her, the way they always had, the way that made her feel both invisible and deeply, specifically loved. She didn't remember the last 8 months, but she remembered this, her mother's catastrophizing dressed up as concern, her father's quiet hand on her mother's shoulder, her brother's teenage certainty about everything. She remembered loving all of it. What the doctors at Severance had told her was straightforward, retrograde amnesia triggered by the accident. The timeline of her memory loss was uneven, the way it often is. She remembered her childhood in Addis Ababa with crystalline clarity, her university years in fragments, her first year in Seoul in patches. But the last 8 months were simply gone, a clean absence like a chapter torn from the middle of a book. She remembered Jihoon. She remembered him the way you remember the best version of something, vivid, warm, slightly unreal. The way they'd met at Café Lumière when she'd accidentally taken his order and then refused to give it back. The way he'd looked at her like she was a problem he was very interested in having. The way he called her Luli like the extra syllable in her name, was something he didn't have time for but said it slowly anyway. She remembered loving him. What she did not remember was leaving him. Her apartment in Hongdae had been waiting for her exactly as she'd left it. Or not exactly. Saba had clearly done something because there were fresh flowers on the table and the dishes were clean and there was a playlist titled Welcome Home Bestie, Do Not Cry, open on her laptop. She cried. Then she made herself tea and sat with the photograph and thought about Jihoon Park for the rest of the night. The next morning, she went back to work. Her coworker Maron Tatus had the specific energy of someone who had been briefed and was trying very hard to behave normally. She handed Lulit a coffee and a project brief simultaneously and said, too brightly, "You look great. You look really, really great." "You're a terrible liar," Lulit said. "I'm an excellent liar," Maron said. "This is just a bad day for it." Lulit settled into her desk and stared at her computer and thought, someone in this office knows what happened between me and Jihoon Park. The trick is going to be figuring out who will tell me the truth. She looked at Maron. Maron was suddenly very busy arranging pens. "Maron. What happened between me and Jihoon?" A pause, a very deliberate pen arrangement. "You broke up," Maron said. "I know we broke up. Everybody keeps telling me we broke up. I want to know why." Maron looked at her with the expression of someone calculating risk. "Lulit, the doctors said." "The doctors said to avoid stress, not to avoid information." "Those are the same thing." "They really aren't." Maron put down the pens. She looked at Lulit with something that was half sympathy and half respect. "I don't know the whole story," she said. "I know it was sudden. I know he didn't see it coming. And I know you were," she hesitated. "You were quiet about it. You didn't talk about it much, which meant it was big." Lulit absorbed this. "You didn't talk about it much, which meant it was big." She looked back at the photograph she'd slipped into her bag that morning, visible at the edge of her open tote. "What did I know that made me leave you?" It was her coworker's fault, really. Maron needed a delivery taken to a client 2 streets from Café Lumière, and Lulit was the only one without a meeting, and the route took her directly past the café, and she stopped because the sign looked familiar in her body before it looked familiar in her mind, the way her feet slowed before she consciously recognized anything. She went in. Hana Lee, the owner, looked up from behind the counter and went absolutely still. Then she recovered impressive honestly and said, "Lulit, hi, what can I get you?" "The usual," Lulit said, and then realized she had no idea what that meant. A flicker of something crossed Hana's face. "She knows." "Americano, room for milk," Hana said. "Sit anywhere." Lulit sat at the window. The café was intimate, not small exactly, but layered, with mismatched chairs and plants that seemed to have arrived and decided to stay, and a counter where regulars apparently sat long enough to develop opinions about the coffee. She felt at home here in the untranslatable way, not because she remembered being here, but because the feeling in her body said, "You've been comfortable in this room before." She was looking out the window when Jihoon walked in. Later, she would think about this moment and understand that she had no way of knowing it was him, not from this angle, not from the door. She would understand that what happened next was not recognition exactly. It was her body's response to his proximity, 8 months of distance compressed into 2 seconds of instinct, and what it produced was a sensation she could only describe as, "Oh, there you are." She turned. He stopped. For a moment neither of them did anything. The café continued around them. Hana, at the counter, very carefully did not look at either of them. He was exactly like the photograph and nothing like it. The photograph had caught him mid-laugh, edges softened. This version of him was stiller, contained, the kind of quiet that is not natural but practiced. "Lulit," he said. His voice, she knew his voice. "Hi," she said, And then, because she had never been good at performing a feeling she wasn't having. I have to tell you that I don't. I know, he said. He knows. Maron told you. Hana told me. He glanced toward the counter. Hana was still not looking at them. She thought I should know before you came back here. He said it without bitterness, without anything that would make it easy to categorize. He said it the way a person says something they have spent a long time preparing to say calmly. Sit down, Lulit said, because she didn't know what else to say and because she needed him to stay. He sat. They were quiet for a moment. Hana brought his coffee without being asked, muscle memory, both his and hers. This is strange, Lulit said. Yes, Jihoon said. You look familiar. He looked at the table. You too. There it was again, that thing hiding inside the thing he actually said. I have the photograph, she said, from my bookshelf, the one where we're laughing. He looked up. I've been trying to figure out what you were saying, she said. In the picture, what made me laugh like that? He was quiet for a beat too long, then, I said your name wrong. He turned the coffee cup in his hand. I'd known you for 4 months and I still pronounced it wrong. You corrected me and I said it right, but then I said the wrong one again immediately after, on purpose. A pause. You thought it was the funniest thing. She looked at him. Luli, she said. His jaw moved. That's what you called me, she said. Right. Yes, he said, very quietly. The door of the cafe opened. A woman came in, early 30s, Korean, in a pale coat, carrying an architect's tube case. She saw Jihoon. Her face did something small and careful. Jihoon, she said, I thought you were at the studio. He stood, the way people stand when they have been caught inside something they don't know how to name. Ki-young, he said, this is Lulit. Ki-young looked at Lulit. Lulit looked at Ki-young. Something landed in the room. I know who you are, Ki-young said, and her voice was entirely kind, which was somehow harder to receive than the alternative. Jihoon's mentioned you. Lulit smiled. It was the smile she deployed when she needed her face to do something her heart wasn't doing. It's nice to meet you, she said. It was not nice. It was the opposite of nice. It was a word with a knife in it. Subscribe if you haven't already. This is the kind of story you're going to want to tell someone. Here is what Lulit knew by the end of that week. 1. Jihoon and Ki-young had been together for approximately 5 months, long enough to have a rhythm, long enough for her to know his coffee order, long enough that when Seoul, Jihoon's older sister, ran into Lulit at a market in Yongsan-gu and found out she was back, she said with that specific brand of sisterly diplomacy, he's happy, you know. It took him a while, but he's happy. Which was either a kindness or a warning, and Lulit couldn't decide which. 2. She had, apparently, been the one to end things. This was the part she kept coming back to, because she looked at the evidence, the photograph, the hoodie, the loyalty card, the way her body knew his coffee order at a glance, the way she'd said, sit down before she'd finished deciding, and nothing inside her looked like someone who had wanted to leave. So why did I? 3. No one would fully tell her. Maron hinted. Hana deflected. Saba, who landed on Thursday as promised and called from the airport the moment she was through customs, said only, Luli, I know you. When you left him, you had a reason, a real one. And I think if you sit still long enough, it's going to come back to you, and when it does, don't let anyone talk you out of it. What if the reason was wrong? Lulit said. Saba was quiet for a moment. What if it wasn't? She started going to Café Lumière every morning. She told herself it was because the coffee was good, which was true. She told herself it was because the walk helped her think, which was also true. She did not examine the third reason too closely. What happened instead was this. Jihoon was there every morning too. Not every morning because of her. His architecture firm was 2 streets away. He had come here every day for 2 years. This was his table before it was their table, before it became nobody's table. And now it was just a table again, except that she was sitting at it. They didn't plan it. They didn't discuss it. They simply both showed up, and after 3 mornings of very deliberate not quite acknowledging, Hana put both their coffees on the same table and walked away, and neither of them moved to a different one. This is how their mornings began. "My brother called," Lulit said one morning, not looking up from her laptop. "Dista," Jihoon said. He said it without thinking. Then, "Sorry." "You remember his name?" "I remember a lot." She looked at him then. He was looking at his coffee. She watched the effort it cost him to be steady and felt something split open quietly somewhere in her chest. "He told me I used to call him from here," she said. "From this table. He said I always called him on my way back from—" She stopped. "From my apartment," Jihoon said, very carefully. "You used to walk to Café Lumière after. You said the walk helped you decompress." She absorbed this. "Were we happy?" she said. He looked at her. It was the longest look, not dramatic, just full, the kind of look that is its own answer. "Yes," he said. "Then why?" "I don't know," he said. "I don't know why you left. You didn't tell me. You just told me it was over, and you were so certain about it that I believed you even when I didn't understand it." She heard something underneath this. Not resentment exactly, more like the echo of a wound that had learned to live in a particular shape. "And Ki-young," she said, because she was going to say it eventually. "Ki-young is kind," he said. "She didn't deserve to be he stopped himself. "She didn't deserve to be brought into something unresolved. That's my fault." "Is it unresolved?" He didn't answer. Which was an answer. It was her mother who broke the silence first, not about Jihoon, but about what had happened just before the accident. Mex called on a Sunday, and Lulit made the mistake of answering while standing in front of the bookshelf with the photograph in her hand. "Are you looking at it again?" her mother said. "How do you know I'm looking at it?" "Because you're quiet the way you were quiet when you came home to Addis the last time. That one specific quiet." Lulit put the photograph down. "Mommy," she said, "tell me about before the accident. What was I like?" A pause. "You were hurting," Mex said, simply. "You were trying not to show it, but you were hurting. Because of the breakup. Because of something that happened before the breakup." Another pause. "Lulit, there are things the doctors said to let come back on their own." "I know what the doctors said." "Then let it come back on its own." "Mommy." Lulit be Kel. And now her mother's voice was doing the thing it did when she meant something all the way through, not just on the surface. "You left that man because you loved him, not because you didn't. When you remember the reason, I need you to hold it in both hands before you put it down. Do you understand me?" Lulit sat with this for a very long time. "You left that man because you loved him. What kind of love makes a person leave?" The answer, when it came, arrived the way the doctors said it would, not all at once but in pieces. First a feeling, then a context, then finally a sound. A voice on a telephone, his mother's voice. The words arriving in the order she had pushed them down. "I'm just worried he's losing himself, Seoyin, in someone who will never fully belong here." And underneath that, the thing she had not let herself think about since the day she heard it. Not anger, not humiliation, but grief. The specific grief of loving someone so much that you would rather leave them to a life that fits than make them fight for one that has you in it. She sat very still in her Hongdae apartment and let herself remember that she had done something kind once, in a language that looked like abandonment, and that he had never known. Seoyin found her. Which, knowing Jihoon Park, was always going to happen. The woman had the specific energy of someone who had been given information, processed it, and decided to act. She appeared at Café Lumière on a Wednesday with 2 pastries and the look of someone who had not come here for the pastries. "You remember," Seoyin said, not a question. Some of it, Lulit said. Do you remember the phone call? Lulit looked at her. Sioyan put down the pastry. I know about the phone call. I figured it out about 4 months after you left. I remembered what I said to my mother that day and what she said back and the timing of everything she stopped. I told my mother. She knows. What did she say? She cried. Sioyan said this without softening it because the truth had its own weight. She didn't know you heard her. She says she didn't mean it the way it sounded. I don't know if that's true or if she's just had 8 months to understand what she said, but she said it. Lulit was quiet. He doesn't know, Sioyan said. Jihoon, he still doesn't know why you left. He thinks it was him, something he did or didn't do. He's been carrying that. This landed in Lulit like something physical. He's with Ki-young, Lulit said. He's with Ki-young, Sioyan agreed. And I love Ki-young. But I've watched my brother look at that woman for 5 months, and I've watched my brother look at you for 2 weeks, and they are not the same look. I'm not asking you to. I'm not asking you either, Sioyan said. I'm just telling you what I see. What you do with it is yours. She stood up, left the pastries, and paused at the door. But Lulit, don't leave because of my mother again. If you're going to leave, leave because of you. She didn't plan to go to his apartment. She went to his apartment. Jihoon answered the door in the specific manner of someone who had been working, glasses slightly askew, pencil still behind his ear, the kind of distracted alertness that lives in the space between a problem and a solution. He saw her face, and the alertness sharpened into something else entirely. What happened? He said. Can I come in? He stepped aside. The apartment looked like him, clean but not empty, walls with drawings pinned at irregular intervals, a kitchen with actual cooking things in it, a photograph of his family on the shelf beside a photograph she recognized with a start, the same one she had at home, taken the same night, different frame. He kept it. She stood in his living room and found that everything she'd practiced saying on the walk over had dissolved. I remember, she said. He was very still. I remember why I left. She turned to face him. I heard a phone call, your mother and Sioyan. Your mother said she was worried you were losing yourself in someone who would never fully belong here. She said it plainly because it deserved plainness. I didn't tell you. I just decided that if that's what it was going to cost you being with me, then I'd rather. Lulit. Let me finish. She took a breath. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I was doing the generous thing. And now I'm standing in your apartment 8 months later with a piece of my memory missing, and you're with someone who is genuinely kind. And I need you to know that it was not because I stopped. I need you to know that I never stopped. He was looking at her with an expression she didn't have a word for. Too many things in it, layered, the way feeling accumulates when it has nowhere to go for a long time. You could have told me, he said, and it wasn't anger. It was something quieter and harder than anger. Whatever she said, you could have told me and let me decide. I know, Lulit said, I know that now. You made a decision about my life without asking me. Yes. Because you thought you knew better than I did what I could handle. I thought I was being kind. You were being, he said carefully, the loneliest version of kind. Something broke open in her chest, accurately. Jihoon. You should have told me, he said again. And now his voice was different, not hard, just honest, the kind of honesty that costs something to give. Not because it would have fixed everything. Maybe nothing would have changed. Maybe my mother would have said the same things and we would have fought and it would have ended exactly the same way. I don't know. But you should have told me because I loved you and I deserved the truth, and instead I spent 8 months thinking I wasn't enough. The room was very quiet. You were always enough, she said. You were too much. You were more than I knew what to do with. He looked at her. His jaw was doing the thing she recognized from the photograph, contained, just barely. I'm with Ki-young, he said. I know. She's a good person. I know that too. And he stopped, started again. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of this, Lulit. I've been trying to move forward. I've been doing the things you're supposed to do, and now you're here and you're wearing, he stopped. She looked down the gray hoodie. He laughed. It came out of him like something he hadn't meant to release, short, a little fractured, completely real. That's mine, he said. I know, she said. I found it in my closet and I didn't know what it was, and now I feel, she laughed too, helplessly. I feel extremely embarrassed. Don't be, he said. His voice had shifted again, softer now, unguarded in the way that happens after something true has been said in a room and the room has absorbed it. They stood there, in the specific quiet of two people who have said the true things and are now standing in the aftermath, waiting to see what is still standing. What do we do? She said. He was quiet for a long time. I don't know, he said. But Lulit, you have to stop making decisions about my life alone. Okay, she said. If something is hard, you tell me. Okay. Even if you think you're protecting me. Okay. Her voice was smaller now, not from weakness but from the particular smallness of being seen. Okay, he said. Neither of them moved. Here is what happened after. Jihoon told Ki-young everything. He did it the same evening, honestly and without softening, and she listened to all of it, and at the end she said something that revealed the particular quality of her kindness. I know, she said. I've known since the second week. You don't look at someone's photographs the way you look at hers. She was gracious about it. She was sad about it too, and that sadness was real and deserved to be real. Some things end gently, that's still an ending. Lulit called her mother the next morning. You remembered, Mex said. I remembered. A long pause. Then Mex was crying again and Taeshom was doing the shoulder thing again, and Desta appeared and said, Is she still in Seoul? And Mex said, Yes, and Desta said, She needs to come home, and Mex said, She is home, and Desta said, Which one? And nobody answered because the answer was complicated, and complicated things take time. Jihoon Park came to Café Lumière on a Thursday. She came alone, without Jihoon, without warning, and she sat down across from Lulit with the posture of someone who has rehearsed and then abandoned the rehearsal. I said something, Jihoon said. On a phone call 8 months ago, I didn't know you heard me. I know, Lulit said. Jihoon stopped. I was afraid, not of you, of watching my son love someone so much that he becomes fragile. She looked at her hands. I have watched him love things in a way that leaves him very exposed. I worried, but the worry was mine. I made it yours. Lulit looked at this woman, elegant, slightly intimidating, and underneath all of it, just a mother who was afraid of watching her child get hurt. Did you mean it? Lulit said. What you said about not belonging. Jihoon looked up. No, she said. I meant something smaller and said something larger. That's the most honest answer I have. Lulit nodded. She said. Jihoon looked at her for a moment. Then something shifted, something small and genuine. Yes, she said, please. Saba, arriving at the apartment for the first time since landing, stood in the kitchen and looked at the photograph on the bookshelf and said, Okay, but is that his hoodie? We don't need to discuss the hoodie, Lulit said. We absolutely need to discuss the hoodie. It was an accident. You wore the man's hoodie to the convenience store, then to his apartment, then apparently to meet his mother. It was comfortable. Lulit Bikel, Saba put down her tea. You manifested that entire situation with a hoodie. I respect it enormously. You're not being helpful. I am being extremely helpful. I am helping you understand that your subconscious is miles ahead of your conscious self and deserves credit. Lulit sat down. She looked at the photograph, then at the hoodie still hanging on the back of her chair. I don't know what's going to happen, she said, with him, with all of it. Saba sat down next to her. Does it feel like yours? Lulit thought about his laugh in the apartment, The fractured, unguarded version. The way he said you should have told me like it cost him something to be that honest, like he was being honest precisely because it cost him. The photograph in its different frame. The same night. The same laugh. Both of them still keeping it. Yes, she said. Then stop trying to decide and just let it be yours. There is a version of this story that ends with a kiss in the rain outside a cafe, or a grand gesture outside his office building, or a speech that ties everything together cleanly. That version is not this one. This version ends on a Saturday morning 6 weeks later. Café Lumière. Their table. His coffee and her Americano and a notebook open between them because they had started doing that working in the same room, not always talking, just present. Jihoon was drawing something. She was not reading what she was supposed to be reading. What are you drawing? She asked. The building you said you wanted to live in, the one with the courtyard. She blinked. I said that once. You said it 3 times, different days, always the courtyard specifically. He tilted the sketchbook toward her. I was thinking about the light. She looked at the drawing, the courtyard, the way he'd placed the windows to catch afternoon sun, the careful, quiet way he'd been listening to her for months. Jihoon, she said. I'm sorry for not telling you. He looked up. He'd heard her say this before. He was going to hear her say it again, probably, because she was the kind of person who needed to say things all the way through until they landed. I know, he said. I'll tell you the hard things from now on. I know that too. Even when I think I know better. He raised an eyebrow. Especially then, she amended. He looked at her. Then he looked at the drawing. Then he wrote something very small in the corner of the sketchbook and turned it toward her. For Lulit, the one with the courtyard. She thought about something the doctors had told her in the early days after the accident, when she'd asked whether the missing 8 months would ever fully come back. They said maybe, partly, in pieces probably, but memory is not a recording, it's a reconstruction. What comes back may not be exact, it may be shaped slightly by who you are now, by what you've learned since. And maybe that's not a flaw. Maybe that's just the way we carry things forward. Someone else's fear. The way it turns up on street corners in its own clothing and waits for you to look up. The way, if you're paying attention, it asks you one question, in the quiet and the in-between. What would you have done? If you'd heard a phone call you weren't meant to hear. If you'd had a reason that felt like love but looked like leaving. If you'd walked back into someone's life with a gap in your memory and a photograph on your shelf and a hoodie that didn't belong to you, what would you have done with the second chance? Because I think your answer says something about what you believe love is for. If you know someone who has ever loved someone else more carefully than they loved themselves, send this to them. Not for the channel, for them, subscribe and stay.